Football is back, and BetMGM is inviting new customers to join the huddle and enjoy the action like never before. Sign up today using bonus code CHAMPION, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. You'll also have instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, player props, and boosted odds specials. Just download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com and enter bonus code CHAMPION and place your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. The BetMGM app is the perfect way to experience the excitement of wagering on live sports, now in more markets than ever. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-888-532-3500.
Hey everyone, welcome to the direct-to-video connoisseur. I'm losing my voice, but I am Matt, and as always, I'm joined by Jamie. Jamie, how are you this evening?
I'm doing very well. I'm glad to be here. So sad that we missed a week last week, which was my fault.
No. I really, like I said, it was my fault for not having prepared well enough. And of course, that's going to go down in history. That last week's episode will be like the Steven Seagal one that I did for my second episode ever. It's going to go down in history as one of those, maybe I'll release it, maybe I won't kind of deals. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think for me, I was like, the April Fool's movie, I'd seen it before. I had my blog post. I realized my blog post actually doesn't really talk about the movie that much. It kind of just talks about me being born on April Fool's Day. So, yeah, I think it was one of those things where I think I should have prepared better for it. 'Cause, I've done a couple solo ones before, but yeah, one of those deals. So don't worry about it. Things happen, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we're getting to cover it anyway, even though we're a week late, because this is one of my favorite films. And so in honor of your birthday, I was all excited to do it, and I got disappointed that we didn't get to. So I'm glad we're picking it up right where we left off.
I agree. And I just had to double check my levels to make sure we're good, but I think we're set where we need to be audio level wise. Yeah, I mean, that was part of, I think part of why I didn't prepare as well, because I definitely wanted to have this conversation. And I think even if I had been able to do a successful episode last week, we still would have come back here and discussed this one because, like you said, it was one that it is important for you as well, and so it's kind of a fun one to talk about. One of the things I mentioned I want to touch on about this episode that kind of isn't necessarily anything to do with the film itself, but I wanted to kind of see what you thought about this as sort of a talking point before we get into the film. The film has Biff in it, right, from Back to the Future.
Yes.
And I don't know if I've brought this up on this on the show before, but Biff being in Back to the Future, 2015 is technically the future. We are technically in Back to the Future 2. And I know Jen and I, when we were watching, they were doing a marathon of Back to the Future on New Year's Day 2015 on one of the channels, like ABC Family or something. And we both had this feeling of like, ugh, kind of, when we realized that it was 2015. Not because we don't have flying cars or, big 3D image of Jaws trying to bite us or anything, or hoverboards or whatever, but because we're here now. When we were young, 2015 seemed so far away, and it seemed like such a wonderful, glorious place, and now we're here. We're kind of here now, and so I don't know. Whenever I see anything Back to the Future wise, and looking at Biff being in this film, kind of just brought that home again. That we're here. There's no more future. We're now in the future.
It's true. Well, I feel that way about all that. Well, when we went right through 1984, and it wasn't as George Orwell predicted it would be. Yes. Then Escape from New York was supposed to be 1988, right. And that was nothing like that was predicted to be. So I get that all the time, and it feels so bizarre whenever you pass a time period that had once been considered futuristic. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, like anything past 2000 was like, ooh, and here we are, and we're in it, and it really is not all that much different.
No,
it's not all that much different.
And that's the thing. I think we were expecting it to be, we were expecting it to be different. We were expecting it to be, we were expecting, I guess flying cars. I remember when I was young, in the 80s, there was a commercial for Energizer batteries saying that they would last until the year 2000. And I remember my mom said, "Ooh, 2000, Matt, that's when you turn 21. You're going to be 21 in 2000." And I thought, hey, okay, and of course, like to demonstrate that it was the year 2000, because it was showing like this garage door opener and how the garage door opener would work through the year 2000 with this one battery in it. They kept like opening it and showing new cars, and of course the year 2000 it shows the car lifting up off the ground and flying away. And so I will always remember it was such a fait accompli that the year 2000 was going to be flying cars. But when you think about it, flying cars are just a mess of considering how difficult it is to make our roads work on the ground. Flying cars are probably never going to happen,
I could see that. Well, imagine just it's difficult enough for people to stay within lines when they have lines to follow, but put them up in the sky where there are no lines to follow, and they're going to be all over the place.
Exactly. I mean, what are you going to do? Yeah, what we're supposed to. I mean, I guess if you could create hover cars, you could create hover medians and hover traffic lights, but I mean, again,
just more things for them to not follow.
Exactly. It's just a mess. Yeah, and the chances of a fatal car accident in the air just goes up exponentially, I'd imagine too. Oh man, yeah. So, I don't know. I'm trying this thing out here on Mixler where I can post on Twitter right now that we're on the air, and I want to see if it works. But
yeah, I did that the last time I did a show, and it's kind of cool the way. I mean, I like the changes that Mixler has made to make it a little bit easier for you.
Hey.
I think it worked out pretty well.
You may get a notification because I added you. I gave you the @, and there I said at Maven 1974 and me for the pod. So you might actually get a notification for that. But yeah, I mean, I know it's like completely off topic of what the movie was tonight, but seeing Biff again just made me think of that, and and we also have in this film the lead man from Just One of the Guys, and so whenever I see him, I think of his famous line from that film, "It's okay, everybody, she's got tits," or he's got tits, actually, I believe is the line. "It's okay, everybody, he's got tits," when the female lead, Just One of the Guys, kisses him in front of everybody at the dance, and everybody gasps, thinking that the two of them are gay, because it was so horrible in the mid-'80s to be gay, unless you were a hairdresser, I guess, or whatever the rules were back then. Yeah.
Right, yeah, you could be a florist or a hairdresser,
that guy with the raspy voice.
Or you could be on Broadway.
That's right, on Broadway, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could be Charles Nelson Riley. That was...
Because that's immediately what I think of.
Yes. But, yes.
And, of course, we also have Deborah Foreman here, whom I always think of uh, with Valley Girl
Yes.
and along with Nicolas
Oh
Cage.
yes.
And Valley Girl, another movie that I love. And that's the foremost performance of hers that always pops into mind. And then, of course, for Friday fans, we have Amy Steele, who was in Friday 2.
Mm-hmm.
She was the final girl in Friday 2. So there are lots of recognizable
Yeah,
people
we've
here.
got we've got quite a crew. And then for people who watch the blog, Ken Oland plays Rob. That he's done some kind of like futuristic actioners, direct-to-video actioners. Um, you know, you look at him now on his picture on IMDb, he doesn't look anything like a futuristic actioner kind of guy. Um, yeah, probably a lot of futuristic actioners that also now take place in the past. I always love that, the future that's now the past when I watch a direct-to-video movie. Yeah. In the year 1992, the apocalypse happened. But I can't remember the names of any. I don't know if I've even reviewed a Ken Oland film, but seeing him in here, I guess I feel like, oh, there he is, Ken Oland. So yeah, it's it. So we were going to talk about how we each kind of have our own connections to this film or things we feel about it. But one thing I always kind of feel about this film is that it really, it really is a product of its time. Like I don't even know if you could make this movie today and make it work the way it did back then. I think the feathered hair and the polos and the boat shoes, like I think you need some of that in there.
I think the preppiness is required for this group of kids, especially considering who they are and the money that's involved. Her name being Muffy. I mean, and that was the kind of thing that was just built for the 80s, and it's like a whole room full of Alex P. Keatons running around. It's what it reminds me of. But yeah, I think that preppy. I guess there still is a preppy crowd today in today's youth, but I think it's different. This just screamed 80s, and of course they did make a remake of this a few years back, which I don't know if you ever saw it.
I reviewed it for the blog, but it's not a remake, is it? Or maybe I'm thinking of a different movie. That
the one there was an April Fool's Day remake, but it was completely different, and it was intended to be a remake, but they changed it, which I think is really the only way you could do it. If you tried to retell this exact story, well, there's really no point because everyone would know the ending before you got there. So it's actually one of the remakes that I don't hate. I think it's okay because they attempted to reach out and do something fresh and different with it, and really made an attempt to make it an original story, but still keep a twist in there for April Fool's Day. So I respect that, and I think they did an okay job. I mean, I don't think it's as fun as this one is, but it's definitely serviceable.
Yeah, I did not. I lost my ability to speak English. Is what happened there. I think I had a stroke or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's going to be bad in your profession.
We're in trouble. I know, but no. I reviewed that one the year after. So I reviewed this one here, the 1986 one. I reviewed it for my 30th birthday. So 6 years ago, I did that one. And then the year after, I had this idea that I was going to do an April Fool's movie because there's so many of them that have that name, but it stopped after a third one. There was an urban April Fool's Day that might have been the worst. Looked like it was shot on a home video or something. It was so bad. But I do remember doing that one, and I can't remember what my thoughts were on it, but I don't think I hated it either, now that you mention it, which is important.
Yeah, I mean, it was a post-Scream. There's a feel to the movies that have come out post-Scream, where they drag in people that you recognize, that kind of thing. When beforehand with horror films, particularly those aimed at teens and young people, they were populated with people that you didn't necessarily know. And then post-Scream, everyone was dragging in people from the WB network and all of that. So this is that, in that sense, a more modern horror film. But it was okay. There are it was no prom night, and that's a good thing. And no prom night remake, and that is a good thing because the prom night remake is terrible.
Mm,
It's just beyond terrible. But this, wasn't all that bad. However, I still prefer this
yeah.
one. And this was directed instantly by Fred Walton, who also did When a Stranger Calls and When a Stranger Calls Back. Um, when a Stranger Calls from 1979. When a Stranger Calls Back, I think, was 1993
Mm,
or something like that. Way along, way down the road after the first one. But anyway, so I mean, he has done at least a couple things that are known, or at least this and When a Stranger Calls. I don't know how familiar most people are with When a Stranger Calls Back, but
yeah. I don't think I've seen
horror
that
fans
one.
tend to know When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that one myself. I'm I do remember When a Stranger Calls.
Oh, and he also did, I can't believe I almost forgot this. He almost did this TV movie that I love from 1988, I want to say, with Shawnee Smith and the girl, I can never remember her name, but she reminds me of Linda. She's like a young Linda Hamilton, and she was in Wishmaster.
Ooh.
And they there was a TV movie called I Saw What You Did with Robert Carradine, where these two young girls were making prank phone calls, and what they would do is they would, and I think that was actually a remake of an older film, but they would call up people at random and just say, "I know who you are, and I saw what you did," just to freak people
Hmm.
out. Well, it turns out that Robert Carradine had just killed his girlfriend, and so when they called him, he was like, "Oh, really?" And so then he starts stalking them because he thinks that they actually witnessed him committing this murder. And it was pretty good. I mean, TV movies were pretty good back
Yeah.
then. And um, I have not seen it in forever, but I would love to see that again. I need to try to see if I can dig that up.
So it
Um,
says here
'Cause
Candace
that's one
Cameron.
of the better. You guys should check that out because you guys like TV movies too.
Oh,
So
yes.
you should dig it up.
Oh, and so it had Candace Cameron was the younger sister of Shawnee Smith. Is that how that? She was listed.
Oh, she is. Oh, okay, I didn't remember that, but maybe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah, it would have been about the around the time when she was working. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
TV movies were a lot of fun in probably like
Yes, they
I
were.
want to say like because even in the 70s like there were a lot of great ones in the 70s that I obviously didn't watch when they were new, but they would air in the 80s on a lot of local independent channels would do weekend movies, so you'd catch ones on like a Saturday afternoon, or
Mhm.
something like that from the 70s, um, and so I can remember. I mean, my dad would have them on or something like that, or my mom. And I think that's one thing that the Lifetime movie is great. The Lifetime movie is fun. It's its own kind of entity, but the 80s and or 70s and 80s TV movie was a different deal. And part of it is you get guys like this who do a movie like April Fools directing some of these.
Oh, for sure. And they were a completely different entity. And I think in a lot of ways that Lifetime is sort of like the last holdout of the TV movie. It's the closest thing you can probably get. I mean, Sci-Fi still does original movies, but whatever. That's not those aren't good. Um, but back when there was movie of the week, or was it like the Sunday night movie or the Monday? I forget what the day of the week it was, but each, like, all the networks would have their movies, like the movies of the week, and it it was a completely different thing. And now TV has changed so much because of the way that cable has gone, and plus digital everything. I mean, people can watch actual films anytime they want, And back then it was different. Back then, you kind of looked forward to the TV movie, and everything wasn't a television event. It was, sometimes they would have a mini series that was really cool, and but it was just every movie you'd have every week you just have a movie, but they were good movies. Like, Duel was a
Sure.
television movie, and it was I mean, you have people who are trying really hard to make decent films, and Trilogy of Terror was a TV movie. Richard Matheson did a lot of writing for TV, and that's quality right there. There were writers and directors that you heard of and respected. Not all the time, but a lot of times. And anyway, I miss them. I miss them a lot.
Yeah, you know what else I think kind of signaled the death knell of the TV movie was like, remember in the early 90s when it seemed like every TV movie was based on some like in the news true story, like a, couples.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Amy Fisher.
Right.
And Tonya Harding. And, anytime anyone, particularly if it was a woman who did something crazy, popped up in the news, you could count on there being a movie. And in the case of Amy Fisher, all 3 networks did 3 different versions of her story.
Yes.
And it's like, how many movies do we need about Amy Fisher? Well, 3 apparently.
Yes. Yeah.
But, I mean, they would immediately pick up on what was going on in the news. Now I think that's like the job of Law and Order. I don't even know. Is SVU still on? Because they used to do that. I don't even know anymore. Like, I have no idea what goes on television for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. It is. It's a different landscape now, and I think you hit the nail on the head too. That like it's a combination of like the 90s where it was the true story. It was whatever was flashy in the news they had to make the movie about. And then, like you said, I think everybody has access to everything now. And so even if you think about it when it comes to TV movies, we can get a lot of them on YouTube or something like that. So, so it's...
And I do. I mean, when I have insomnia and I'm up late at night, if I've come across something good, I'll send you guys a message. Yes. I'm like, look, I was just watching this on YouTube. It'll be like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm digging up, some bulimia movie or something on YouTube, whatever I come across. But so they're still out there. I really need to see if I Saw What You Did is out there, because now I really want to see it.
I know that one looked good. That's one I think Jen would definitely like to check out if she hasn't seen it, or even if she had seen it already. I think she'd want to see it again. But
oh yeah, I mean, if it may not be anything like I remember it being, because I probably haven't seen it since maybe the 90s. Because occasionally they re-air them, but I don't. I've seen it in probably 20 years. So it may not be as good as I remember it being, because in 88 I was 14. So what I considered good when I was 14 may not at all be what I consider good now. But, I definitely want to go back and check it out.
Yeah, and that's, that's a thing too. It's interesting, I think, is that a lot of these films, sometimes you watch one from the 80s and you go, yes, it was bad. I didn't like it. I don't know why I liked this back then, because it's bad. But I think a lot of times there's a certain, I don't want to say nostalgia, but there's a certain aesthetic from the 80s. It's just kind of fun to watch. Like I was saying with this movie, how, the feathered hair and the preppy look. Mm-hmm. And, like if it's a product of its time, it kind of has enough in it that even if it wasn't as good as you remember, sometimes there's enough there that there's enough of a novelty factor that makes it a fun watch.
Oh yeah, and this is like the people in this movie are like right in there with all the like the Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, Brat Pack kids when they had all those movies coming out, like Class, with Rob Lowe and Andrew McCarthy, and I think Jacqueline Bisset played Rob Lowe's mother that had the affair with Andrew McCarthy. I don't know. I mean, yes. But all of those kinds of movies, like with the preppy kids, this is like the horror version of that. So they all kind of smush in there together, and I feel very nostalgic with this film. And you're right about the aesthetics. There's a certain look and feel. There's the music. I always liked the score to this film quite a bit. And there's just, I don't know, the whole thing, it just looks and feels different. The other night we were watching The Hunger, and that movie starts out with in a club with Bauhaus playing. What is it? Bela Lugosi's Dead. Yeah. And it's like this like Euro trashy early 80s club with just, looking at the clothes, and it has that hazy look to it. It just felt so 80s. I could scream, but in all the best ways. And everything and I was talking to Brian then, and I was like, God, movies back then just had a feel to them. They had a look and a feel. And even if you didn't know when it was made, you could take that movie, you could take 9.5 weeks, you could take any movie that was made from around this period and go, yes, I know when this movie was made, just because of the way it looks, because of the like the synthy soundtrack, just that they all had that hazy look about them. It just there's a certain feel to it, and I think every era has that.
Yeah.
You can pick out a 70s movie, you can pick out a 90s movie. Even though I've always kind of felt about the 90s, even when we were in them, that the 90s didn't seem to have a thing of its own. I felt like it was just because I don't know if you remember back then, but like fashion was pulled a lot from the 60s. Like the hippie culture came back, and people were wearing like low slung jeans and bell bottoms and things like that. And I was just like, God, it feels like we're dragging it out of the 60s. Why can't we do something of our own? But it just seemed like a mishmashy melding of a bunch of other stuff, and it didn't really seem very, I guess grunge maybe was the 90s thing. But even that was just clothes you already had. They just were dirty. You know?
Well, that was the thing. I think the 90s was like all about retro, right? It was the 60s, and then the 70s had a little bit of a time. And then the 80s, I remember when we were in seniors in high school, or maybe it was, actually, I guess it was earlier than that, because I remember the Totally 80s CD. Do you remember that double disc that they would sell on
Okay.
Yeah. And so my buddy had the double tape, and we would go out and cause problems, do our high school bad things while playing like Karma Chameleon and whatever, things like that. And of course, my buddy's mom had the 12-inch. Actually, no, it wasn't the 12-inch single. It was the actual LP of whatever album that was. Paint by Numbers? Is that what it was called? The Culture Club album that had Karma Chameleon on it?
I had the single. I actually had the Karma Chameleon single. I still have it.
Nice.
But I don't remember what LP that was on, because I just bought the single. I remember I had gotten some money from my parents because I did something. I don't know. I got like some A's in school. I don't know what I did. But anyway, I got some money from my parents for something. And they took us to the record store. And we could pick out whatever we wanted. And I got the Karma Chameleon single.
Nice. The 45. The 45.
I just dated the hell out of myself.
Was it a 45 or a cassette?
It was a 45.
Wow. See, the 45s for me, I was like on the cusp. Like Jen is all about the 45s. I was like on the cusp of 45s and cassette singles. But
I had a shit ton of cassette singles too that I still have. I don't get rid of stuff like that. I don't know why, but I still have them all.
It's good to have. Well, the reason why I never had the 45s actually is my parents had a record player with no needle, and they didn't want to go to Radio Shack and get a new needle for their record player. So it
was kind of a bitch. I mean, I remember when our record player needles, because we had a couple of spares, and when those ran out, because we had one of those big like console record players that was also like storage cabinet, and it was an 8-track player, and you lifted up the wooden lid, and the stereo and stuff was underneath, and so it was all hidden within a cabinet. It was like a piece of furniture, and that's what we had. And when the needles broke, and the last needle broke, it was like, well, that's it, no more records. We can't play any more records. And then I got a Fisher-Price turntable one year, and I played records on that until the needle broke. And then, like, when I was in my early teens, I got a stereo with a turntable for my birthday, and I played records on that until the needle broke. But it was like, once the needle broke, it was like, that's it, it's too much trouble to fix the needle. Just, we're not doing that anymore. But I also had the Debbie Gibson Out of the Blue LP.
Nice. And
I had the Tiffany single, I Think We're Alone Now, which I don't even know why, because that song got so much radio play. It was on my nerves. I have no idea why I ever got that single. And I also had the Police, Every Breath You Take. I had that 45 too.
Nice. Kind of a little off topic here about the Debbie Gibson one. I remember Tony Danza used to have a talk show, and Debbie Gibson, I believe she was Deborah at that time, she was a guest, and he had that same Out of the Blue.
The white album with the blue, like Out of the Blue.
Yes.
And
he had her sign it. He had her sign it for him.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I still have that. And I used to sit and listen to that over and over and over again. And so I was going to be the next Debbie Gibson. In my mind, that was the plan. Didn't happen.
How did this not come up when we did the Mega Shark movie with Mecha Shark and Mega Shark, and she?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
You conveniently left that out in that first episode.
Maybe I wasn't as comfortable with our audience, and I didn't want to share that much embarrassing crap.
Debbie, yeah. So yeah, I mean, in this film would have been right in that, right? 86, would that have been right around? Or no, was she 88?
She was like 87, 88, 88, I guess. Somewhere around in there. How old was I? 88, I would have been 14. She might have been even later than that. I don't know if I was 14 or 16 when I was doing that. Oh my God, that's embarrassing. But this was like just before her.
Yeah, 'cause she was young when she I think she was like the youngest person.
Maybe she was 16 and I was 14. Because I want to say we were close in age, but she was a little bit older than me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, because I think she has the record for being the youngest songwriter.
She was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, now she's in the asylum.
Oh, yeah, that's completely off topic.
No.
We haven't said word one about April Fool's Day.
We start, every time we got to get into it, we find ourselves on Yes. Well, let's talk about, I mean, because, for me, obviously, the film, it's my birthday, April Fool's Day, and I always kind of feel like the birthday's kind of apt for me, I guess, because, I am, I
pity.
Yeah, I'm kind of a goofball. I kind of, say goofy, so it kind of fits with me, but, I always get the questions, is it really your birthday, especially with things like, I went through a whole rash of it now with Skype because I use my Skype account for work. So a lot of my colleagues were like, is it really your birthday today? Well, if it is, happy birthday. It's like, yes, it's my birthday. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. But
that's an elaborate joke.
Yes.
Because that means that on your profile for everything, you would have to put April Fool's Day as your birthday on, like, if, Facebook, Twitter, Skype, whatever. Just so when you create your profile, you would do that. Just so when April Fool's Day rolls around, it would say it's your birthday, and it wouldn't be true. That is a lot of dedication to a joke.
I really don't want people to know my real birthday. Yes, I remember a kid I went to school with told me I had forgotten all about this until we talked about the fake birthday. She said, "What if your birthday was a different day and your parents were just fooling you every year?" And I was like, I think she was like 10 when she said that to me. And I was like, you think that my parents would do that? Like, 10 years of the same joke?
No.
I guess when you're 10, you think those, I mean, I guess, too, when you're 10, you just realize your parents just pulled off this elaborate prank for the past however many years to tell you that some big guy in a red suit was delivering the presents that your parents were going into 6 months of credit card or a year of credit card debt in to pretend that a big red man delivered them. So I guess if they would go to those lengths to cover up their present buying capacity, maybe it's not that inconceivable after we all just found out that there is no Santa Claus. That, yes, what other lies would our parents tell us? And, Matt, maybe your parents were lying to you about your birthday all those years.
And I wish I had parents like that. At least they'd be fun.
Right, exactly.
Parents with one hell of a sick, twisted sense of humor. That'd be all right.
That could be the next April Fool's movie. That's the next one. Is that he finds out his parents he finds out he wasn't born on April Fool's. It was a lie, and so he goes out on a killing spree. Uwe Boll directed it. Rampage 3, April Fools. Right, that's his third Rampage movie. What? I wasn't born on April Fool's Day?
I'm the April Fool.
This is a travesty. I must go out and kill a bunch of people. I don't know why Uwe Boll is saying it. He never acts in his own films. He never has Germans act in his films either. They're always American. So I don't know why. It just the German accent. I felt like I needed to do it.
It's okay. I know you just wanted to.
I just wanted to do a German accent. Yeah. Everything has to end in yeah.
So that's what do you actually like this movie, or do you just feel like
I like the movie. Yeah,
to it?
I enjoy it. It is because I enjoy it because it is that 80s. I don't say 80s, the 80s teen slasher film. It has that kind of fun element to it that I really enjoy, and I like the cast. I like that it is a product of its time. All of that really works. I mean, I think if I think this exact movie, had it been made in the 90s or the 2000s, I don't think I would enjoy it as much. But it does. It does feel like that. It has that feel. It's at the camp, so it kind of has a sort of Friday the 13th kind of feel to it. And so all of it works for me on that level. So that's why I enjoy it. But how about you? I know this is one of your favorites as well. It's one that you really enjoy.
It is. I have a long history of loving this film, starting from when I went to see it. When it was released, my mom and I went to the drive-in to see it. We used to go to the drive-in all the time to see horror movies, ever since I was little bitty, because my mom really liked the drive-in. And so now, consequently, I really love the drive-in. But this is one that we went to the drive-in to see it together. And I remember, watching the whole thing with her, and we were all into it. And then when the ending came, she was mad.
She wanted them all dead.
She was mad because she wanted them all dead. And she's like, "Why are they dead?" And but we still liked the movie. She was just like, "Ah!" I think she was just irritated that it got her. I thought it was funny. I loved the ending. I thought it was, really original and kind of fantastic. And then more recently, when Brian and I met, this is the first movie that we watched together.
Your first film together.
Yeah. And, both of us being huge horror fans, like we are, this was the first one when we decided to watch a movie together. I was like, he's a big slasher fan, too. And so that this was the first one we shared, so it will always be special to me for that, which is now why I recently bought a poster of this film, and it's the original one sheet that I got, and it's in fantastic condition, and I got it for a fantastic price, so I was really excited about that. So now I have the original one sheet of this movie hanging in my house.
Wow, that's so cool. So yeah, I think that's always a kind of a special thing, especially when you're a couple that are movie lovers. Jen and I are. It's interesting because we kind of have two first movies. Our first one that we really watched together was A Mighty Wind, and so that was when she brought some movies with her when we were visiting. She was up and visiting me, and she had a really long flight. She came in. We wanted to kill some time, and so we made some drinks and we watched A Mighty Wind. So we ended up using some music for that for our wedding. So that's yeah. So that's one, and then the other film that we kind of share is this film called Wicked, which is a direct-to-video film starring Julia Stiles. That when we first were talking, yeah, Wicked. She's like 14 or 15 in it. But it's got some real like Lifetime movie guys in it. Some real people that you'd recognize. It also has Michael Parks in it, which is great. But when she found out I reviewed direct-to-video movies, she's like, "Oh, I have one that I really enjoy that you should check out." So I just went and bought it and reviewed it for the blog, and then so that's kind of like, so we kind of have two in that vein. But I know what you mean, like that movie that's your first movie, I think is always a good one, and I think it's kind of cool that we can talk about this one here.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys do Skype movie? Like, did you Skype movies together when you were?
No.
Before you got together, Brian and I, we would both either pull up the same movie on Netflix, or we would put in our DVDs and then just sync it. And he would always have to do the count, 3, 2, 1, play. And we would be on Skype and we would watch movies together that way. Before we actually moved in together, obviously. We don't do that anymore.
That's not right. You don't need to.
I guess we could. I guess we could, but that would be kind of silly.
Yes. It's kind of funny about how all of those things, when you finally are together, a lot of the things that were necessary expenses before, like making sure you have a lot of text messages. Well, now I don't need to text message as much anymore. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just, as a matter of fact, this month, I just downgraded my cell phone plan because I'm like, why am I paying so much money when I don't even use it hardly anymore compared to what I did? And now I'm just paying extra money for nothing. So I just downgraded my plan. So it's funny you should say that because that is one of the things, that's We're one less Netflix account.
Yes, we did that. That's two. That's us too.
We had that
Yes,
conversation.
we did that too. We decided to go. We combined mine, and so now we have a Jen and Matt. But it's interesting because I think I try to keep mine because we kind of use mine, and then she has her own as well. But with mine, I try not to have anything too gross as far as a horror film or anything up near the top, just so it's not too bad to look at. But yeah, we do like it's always kind of it's a good thing to kind of like you said, you combine those things. And then she has the Amazon account as well, so she has a lot of good shows and things on there too that we watch together.
Yeah.
I know it is. Yeah, I never thought of that. No, usually what would happen is that I would get done work and then we would chat in the evening, and so it was kind of like whatever was on. One thing I always remember is that she would sometimes play Soul Train, which I used to. She has the DVDs about Soul Train, so you hear some like really great music in the background.
Oh wow, I didn't know that was released on DVD.
Yeah, I'm not.
Is it like full episodes?
I don't remember if it's whole episodes. It might be whole episodes. I think you can do whole episodes, and I think it's like got some different.
I used to love Soul Train on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I grew up in New England, which I'm not going to. I don't know if there's a delicate way to say this about New England, but especially in the 80s, but it's not a very diverse part of the country, especially Maine. So Soul Train was often on at like 2 or 3 in the morning in the Boston market on the weekends. So it was, you could not get Soul Train Saturday mornings like that. It was a very hard thing to find. Yeah.
Never thought about that. I just figured it had the same time slot everywhere. But
no, because it's syndicated. So yeah, I know. I think Jen said it was Saturday mornings for her too. But I believe, I could be totally wrong about this. I could be thinking of just like only the Shamar Moore years, and not the Don Cornelius. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Don Cornelius, the most unlikely host of a music show ever. When he seemed so old and serious, and he used to kind of frighten me because he was so serious all the time.
He was great. VH1 did a documentary on Soul Train, and they show the one time that he went down the Soul Train line, which is the best.
Oh, I never saw that. Oh, that must have been hilarious. Did he just walk? I picture him just walking with his hands down by his side.
No, he could cut a rug. He had moves. He
That's
did
cool.
it. Yeah, I know Jen showed it because Jen found the documentary, the VH1 documentary on YouTube. So it had like kind of the whole thing. It talked about Shalimar. It talked about how the rise of all of that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So good old Don Cornelius. Yeah, I want to say I think he must have stopped doing the show in like the early '90s. I think is when they passed it over to Shamar Moore.
Yeah, it was something like that because I think I stopped watching it once I, went off to college, and so it was around that time.
Yeah, Beefy Beard said he dressed well. He definitely dressed well. He could. Yeah, he had it down. He had the whole thing. But yeah, the voice there was a Stone Gas. I mean, that was, yeah. But yeah.
Oh, Beard. Hi, Gary.
I know. Yeah, he didn't show up in the list of listeners. I know. We might, all these times I think we're only talking to Brian. It's possible that there are many people out there that just they don't show up on the list, and so
Yeah, they may be other hoping we'll talk about April Fool's Day.
They're sitting there going, we didn't come here for Soul Train. We came here for April Fool's Day. I want to hear about the penis rip. I want to hear, what would you call that? If you were going to tag it on IMDb, penis disarticulation? I don't know what it would.
Oh man, I don't know. It's like an early bobbit.
Yes. I remember.
Hateful. That hashtag holy shit.
Oh, I remember a movie Street Trash had a penis rip in it. It was just like and then like it was like the guy's penis got pulled off, and then they were like throwing it around. And I remember this show Buzz and Tony's Drive. Do you remember that Buzz and Tony's Drive-In reviews on Comedy Central?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was these two kind of goofball guys that would talk about they would talk about whatever bad movies, but they kind of go over like like a Cliff Notes version of them, and they were talking about that film Street Trash. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
penis toss, and they're like, "Oh, we've got a penis toss," and they were throwing them around, showing them throwing it around and everything. And so I was like, I've got to find Street Trash. And then of course now it's like you can get it on DVD, like a special edition version of it, and it's I mean that's the world we live in now. Is that in the '80s you had to like go through like 4 or 5 video stores to find Street Trash in a version that was like, the tracking was messed up on the tape, it had been partially chewed, and you got to watch like part of the film with like those little gray lines on it, and now there's a special edition DVD that costs $30 for on Blu-ray of Street Trash. So, yeah, nothing like the 2015s.
That's right. We may not have flying cars, but we've got Blu-ray special editions.
Street Trash. Yes. Now, Beefy Beard said he also, like your mom, was not a fan of the ending of April Fools.
I know that a lot of people felt that way. There are a lot of people now who feel that way. I think most of the people I know, and I know Gary very well, and we do shows together pretty frequently, and he's a sweetie. Most of the people I know think pretty highly of this film. I guess maybe part of that is nostalgia, I don't know. But there are quite a few people out there who don't like it, that it ends up being in the end, which I really don't think it matters. As far as it being a slasher, it still is. I mean, you still get all of the same elements that you get from a slasher. You get the same goriness, the same setups, the same characters, the same kills. It just so happens that at the end, they all come back, And I really don't think that detracts from the film at all. I think that it's clever and original and really fun. The only thing I don't like about this film is at the very end, like the very, very final shot, when the Jack in the Box winks.
Yes.
That makes no sense to me. I don't get that at all. But other than that, I love this movie. But that damn jack-o'-lantern, that damn Jack in the Box winking drives me nuts every time. I'm like, why are you winking? That doesn't make any sense. You're not alive.
Well, and I can understand too, kind of maybe where Beefy Beard has a problem with the ending too, because you think about it, April Fool's jokes aren't always supposed to be good, right? In fact, most of them are annoying to the people who aren't being fooled. And so, on that sense too, I mean, I'm not saying you're supposed to annoy your audience. Like you should never. That's not a good excuse for doing something in a film. But it fits with an April Fool's joke that some people are like, oh, come on, really? Like just put the buzzer handshake thing away, and I'm done.
Well, and what I've noticed this year more than any other year is I've seen a lot of posts on April Fool's Day on Facebook and Twitter where people were saying, okay, I'm sick of the jokes now. Okay, April Fool's Day. Haha. Like, people have no tolerance for April Fool's Day anymore. And I didn't realize that was a thing until this year, and I saw a lot of people posting about it. I'm like, God, why is everybody so mad about April Fool's Day? Just have fun with it. And yes, there are some dribble glasses, and yes, people stick whoopee cushions under you, or they may, I don't know, I mean, some of them are more mean-spirited, but really just take a joke. I've never understood why people just get so upset about pranks or practical jokes. As long as they don't hurt you or cause any real damage to anything, I don't really see the harm. But people don't seem to be lighthearted as they used to be. Yeah. I mean, they seem to just have no tolerance for April Fool's Day.
Yeah, I guess for my end of it, I have a unique, interact, or my experience is unique just because, being that it is my birthday, growing up, people were always like trying to target me for April Fool's jokes, which seemed to make no sense. Like, what, the one guy who's not going to forget it's April Fool's Day is the guy whose birthday it is. So,
that's a good point.
So it never made any sense. Like, in fact, I was overly suspicious. I would be like, come on, really, that's an April Fool's joke. And they're like, no, I'm serious. Like, I want to give you this, or I want you to have this. It's your birthday, or whatever. And I'm like, fine, I'm just going to not eat this food, or whatever. And it may have been perfectly good.
How much cool stuff did you throw away out of suspicion over the years?
If it wasn't
How
wrapped,
many times on your birthday did you get those candles that won't blow out?
I'm trying to think. So, yeah, that kind of thing, yes. One thing, what I would do with those, I learned to take my fingers and like kind of moisten.
Spit on the
Yeah,
ends.
and put this. I'd put them out with my finger, my forefinger and thumb. After I did that once, people stopped using the doesn't blow out candles thing. So that was that. Boy, yeah, food. If it wasn't wrapped already, you know what I mean. If it wasn't in a sealed.
You're like a parent on Halloween.
Well, now I don't care. Now I don't expect to be pranked. But growing up, I just it just was one of those things where I was like, okay, what is somebody going to try to pull? And I don't really remember getting hit with any really bad one. Like I don't remember falling for any that really got me because I think because of that, because I was always so vigilant. But one that I remember was the kids at the bus stop, which was this is probably one of the lamest pranks ever. I got to the bus stop and they said, "Oh, we already missed the bus," and I'm like, "Well, what are you all doing here?" And they said, "Well, we're just gonna hang out. We figure we're gonna miss the bus. We're just gonna skip school today." I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna skip school with you." I'm like, "No, you should go home and get a ride from your mom. We don't want you to miss the whole day too." I'm like, "No, if you're gonna skip, it's my birthday. I should be able to skip, right?" And then the bus came. They were like, "April Fools," and I'm like, "How is it April Fools? I wasn't fooled. I stayed here." And they were like, "We got you," and I'm like, "How did you get me?"
No, you
Yeah,
didn't.
but
Oh, this past, I was working at a restaurant, and this past April Fool's, this couple comes in, and at the end, I go to hand them their bill, and she's like, "Oh, give it to Melissa. She said she would pay for it." And I said, "Okay." And then her husband goes, "Remember what day it is?" And I was like, "Yep."
oh, no, you had to work that long day too.
You didn't get me.
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't get
Oh,
me. But
yeah.
they were so proud of themselves. He's like, "Oh, remember what day it
Yes.
is?" I'm like, "Yep, sure do. I'm at work."
Yeah.
Of course I remember.
Well, one thing that's fun is when kids try to pull the pranks. I enjoy those. Like when my nephew tries to get me with something, like that's great because I will sit on the whoopee cushion all day, if he puts it down there. But I know, like, I kind of took the fun out of April Fool's Day. I have to admit, I was really bad about it. Like, when someone would pull a prank, I would get really, like, overly sarcastic. I think like, the whole Facebook thing now where you said people are over the day, I think I had it before that, and I just, when I look back on myself, I would have smacked myself upside the head for the way I behaved on April Fool's Day back then. I was Mr. Know-it-all, thought I was so smart. Oh, is
Hmm.
somebody trying to fool me with something here? Oh, look at me. Oh, is this a whoopee cushion? I don't see this here. Oh, and then I would sit in it and be like, oh, you got me. Oh, my God. And then we would just look and be like, really, Matt? Okay, we get it that you knew it was a joke. And so I think if I look back on myself now, I probably wasn't, I wasn't I could have been a little bit better about it. But I think in my by the time my teen years came around, I didn't, I thought the whole April Fool's thing, I had enough. If there had been a Facebook then, I probably would have, you know, lost some Facebook friends. I would have become an internet meme. Probably people probably would have been, screenshotting me and putting it all over the internet and being like, "What a tool this guy is."
Well, my favorite reaction, this is Amy
Hmm.
Steele at the end where ha ha ha. Like, I love that because she's just like she's so pissed off.
Yes. Well, because I mean this was an April Fool's. This was like the jerkiest April Fool's joke, but it's also a kind of a relief April Fool's joke, which I think, in that sense, it's like, I mean, it's not fun. Nobody wants to be put through hell for, oh, the guy freaking out in the closet. Yeah, there were some good ones in this.
Oh, that's phenomenal. When he comes running out and he's just and even okay when the guy from the ferry pops up and takes the like peels the appliance off his
Mm-hmm.
face and sticks it on his face and he's just standing there
Mm-hmm.
screaming. He still doesn't get
Right.
it. He's got this plastic appliance on his face and he still doesn't understand that it's a joke. Then he breaks out and goes running in there
Yes.
screaming and it takes him a few
Mm-hmm.
seconds to get a handle on what's happening. His reaction is fantastic. That is some great acting. I don't even know how they got him to do that. It's almost like he really thought everyone was
Yeah.
dead, and then they just sort of released him because that was pretty damn good.
Yeah, it had this movie had its moments, and I think yeah. I mean, I guess maybe because for me, I didn't associate the bad parts of April Fool's Day with this movie because I'm separate from it, and I could watch it as an outside observer and be entertained by it. But I thought it just had a lot of fun in it. And like you said, moments like that, that just were a lot of fun, and I think that's what you want from a slasher film called April Fool's Day in 1986. You want it to be a lot of fun.
Well, precisely. And back then everyone wasn't so nihilistic like they are
Mm-hmm.
now, and this is the kind of thing that totally makes sense for the 80s, is to have a good I mean, and of course not everything had a happy ending. The majority of your slashers didn't, at least for everyone but one person. This being the exception, but it totally fits. It's just people weren't so dark back then, and everything wasn't so heavy. Even slashers where people are getting killed violently somehow seemed lighthearted in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. And I guess it was just the approach to it and the feel to it, and that it was all in fun, for us, the audience. Um, yeah, I don't know if something like that I don't know how it would play out today. You know,
Yeah, I think this film it exists before the black cloud of cynicism that we called the 90s, or maybe even the early 2000s, took hold of our world. And even though the 80s had Reagan, which was not the most fun thing, and I guess for part of it still had the Cold War. Overall, the 80s were a lot of fun, and I think this film is indicative of that time.
right? Yeah. I mean, today everyone just wants, and I like a good dark ending on occasion. Don't get me wrong. I I like it when a film is dark and heavy and like really serious. Sometimes, not all the time, you know. Um, but there's this need right now for everyone to die, for everything to be bleak, for everything to just be inescapable and just horrible. And the implications at the end of the film are just, oh, it's all
Mm-hmm.
doomsday. Um, and I kind of like when there's a relief from that on occasion. You know, it's like, hey, I still get to watch all the goriness and people getting killed and the chills and the spills that I love of a slasher film, but in the end, everyone's fine, and I think that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Beefy Beard brought up Summer School, which was also a lot of fun with the way they did the fake killing with
Yes,
chainsaw. Which, of course, we had another Summer School alum in this film. Ken Oland, I believe, was in Summer School. Um, did I call him Ken Holland? I think I got his name right. But
yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
I believe But my favorite, of course, was Chainsaw. Dave Marshak from Ski School. That guy is just. If you've ever seen the Ski School movies, Ski School 1 and 2, they were direct-to-video kind of ski romp deals. But yeah,
I saw one, I never saw two.
I don't remember the guy's real name. It's a famous name, like the last name's famous. But he's Dave Marshak in those films, and that's what I always when I see Chainsaw, I think of Dave Marshak. But well, so I guess we're giving this 2 thumbs up. If well, sorry, can't because it's copyrighted. We can't say that, but we're both giving this a positive, a plus sign.
They're both dead now. Who's gonna sue?
I think whoever owns the rights to that show isn't there still a syndicated show that's like at the movies or something? That's
Oh, I don't
um,
know. I
I,
don't know. I just what today. It's funny though because just today we watched Life Itself, the documentary about Roger
mm,
Ebert, which is really good, by the way.
yeah,
I was bawling my face off by the end of that. By the end of that film, it's really,
I'll
really
have to
good.
watch that.
But so anyway, yeah. I don't, well, we are both recommending it
Right, we're
highly.
both highly
Yeah.
recommending it. Yes. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think that like I said, there are those out there who are unhappy with everything, and we kind of spoiled it if you've never seen it, I guess. But it's still, you know what? It's still worth it, especially if you're a slasher fan. You get all the elements that you would get from the slasher films of the 80s that you love. And characters who aren't douchebags. That's another thing we
yes.
talked about is that you notice when, I mean, they goof around and they're kind of obnoxious and drunk and all of that when they're partying. But the moment they think that one of their friends is in trouble, every one of them drops what they're
Yeah.
doing to go try to help him, to go try to find
Hmm.
him. When Amy Steele and her boyfriend come back and say that they just saw the guy floating underneath the boathouse, and they run back and tell everyone. The guys take off to go and try to find him. Like, these are good kids. These are nice people. They care about their friends.
Yeah, like you said, they're not douchebags, and I think that's I think that's a good deal as well too. I think that,
Well, nowadays it's hard to find a film where there aren't like half the characters, or sometimes even all the characters, are so reprehensible you don't give a shit what happens to them. But here, these are just good kids. They get a little crazy, they have a little fun, but they're at their heart they're good, and they're caring, fun, loving, just good-natured individuals. So, that's something I missed from movies back then too, having likable characters that you can get behind and care about.
Yeah, I agree. So that's this film, April Fool's Day. We're both giving that one a positive. It's a good film. I think I agree. It's like you said too. The characters are likable. You're gonna like seeing some of these people you recognize, and I think the '80s aspect of it. It's just a product of its time, but it really works as well in that capacity. So before we get into the what have you been up to recently segment of our show, Jamie, I wanted to mention I had a chance to listen to the Likin' It podcast, the most recent one that you've had here, and I thought it was really great. So everybody out there, Horophilia, on your iTunes or however you do that. I do it through iTunes. I think you have to get it through Horophilia, but I don't remember how I downloaded it. I just know that I had it and listened to it, and I thought it was great. Brian, of course, who is always pitching in here on our show with tech support and in the chat.
And Gary here at Beefy Beard, that's Gary.
That's right. That's right. So both of the people in our audience were on that show. So you guys also both did a great job. So really like that one. I saw that Wolf Cop is now on Netflix, so maybe that's something we need to look at.
It is, and I would love to. I would love to talk about that if you're interested.
Yeah, it piqued my interest. I mean, you talked about Wolf as well. Maybe we'll talk about that one as well when we do Wolf Cop. But I thought that was really great there. So, Beefy Beard was not a real schmuck talking about Jack Nicholson. I thought that was great. Yes, he was peeing on people. He peed on James Spader in that film. So
yes, he did. And he ate asparagus before he did it,
That's
apparently,
right.
which is just mean. That's just mean.
Right. So,
well, thank you for listening. That's awesome.
Yeah. So before you talk about the other things, I just wanted to put that out there. Get Horophilia. Is it .com or .net? .com. Yeah. Horophilia.com, or look up Horophilia on iTunes and look up Likin' It, and check that new episode out because it was a really great one. But
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Now, what else have you had going on as far as the other podcasts go?
Well, on Devour, we're still doing our Friday the 13th retrospective. I swear we're never going to be done with that. We did record Jason Goes to Hell. It's just not out yet, but that's the one that should be coming out next. And then tomorrow night we're supposed to be recording the Jason X show. So hopefully that means Jason Goes to Hell will be coming out sometime soon. But it's just slow going. So we're still doing that. We just had a new Skeleton Crew come out on the 2nd, where we talked about 3D movies on the whole. But we spent a huge long time talking about specifically Friday the 13th, Part 3, because it came out in 3D. And that's because it was episode 103 of the Skeleton Crew, and it was also our 3rd anniversary show. So there are just a lot of threes flying around there, if you get the theme. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did on there. I just recently, this week I did 2 guest spots. One was on the projection booth, where when it comes out, I was discussing the movie Splice. And then I was on the show Banana Laser, where we did an in-depth discussion of The Exorcist. So that's what I've been doing.
So as always, very busy in the podcasting world.
Yeah. And then, of course, Evil Episodes. We had an Evil Episodes come out, too, where we talked about the new film It Follows, which has gained such momentum in theaters. It started out with just a very limited release in only LA and New York. It did so well there that it got a slightly larger release the next weekend. And then it did so well there that it just boomed. I mean, it just blew up. And got a nationwide release. So this little film that was also filmed here in Michigan, and it's doing really well for a reason. because it is amazing. So I recommend that you check that out, or at least check out the latest episode of Evil Episodes where Brian and Mike Merriman and I talk all about it.
Excellent. And again, we need
spoiler free, really. I mean, we actually delve into that one. I think it's pretty safe from spoilers. We tried to be careful with that one because we want people to see it.
Well, and we should maybe point out again, Uwe Boll, speaking of Michigan, start making your movies there. It's time to start.
Right.
but that is great. I think it's always great when, especially like we talked about with Michigan, trying to kind of boost that economy in Detroit. And, it's a great place, I think, to have movies. And so I think it's, more, getting the buzz out there about a film like this and really seeing it blow up, I think would be really great for the film industry there.
I think so too. So I hope it continues to gain momentum and do really, really well. It deserves it.
Yeah, perfect. Now, for the fans of the KNS fanfic that I have out there, volume 163, Cajo Feliz, where I do the guys in space on the Enterprise act out the birdcage. So.
Who does the Nathan Lane part?
I don't know if I want to give it away, but yes, it is Spock. Spock is the Nathan Lane character.
Oh,
no,
hilarious!
No, of course not. No, Spock is Robin Williams. Spock is Robin Williams. Yes, of course. Well, you couldn't have Spock be Nathan Lane,
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It was.
Oh, I pierced the toast.
You pierced the toast. It's a lot of work to try to just imagine Spock saying Madonna, yeah. But yeah, so that should be available soon. And again, the blog, I don't know when we'll ever be back on the blog again, but at least we've got the podcast. We're going to keep, so it keeps the direct-to-video connoisseur alive during these lean months when the blog posts aren't as prevalent. But hopefully we'll get some more of those coming out soon.
All right.
Hey, well, that's our episode this week here, Jamie. It was a great conversation. I think we talked enough about April Fool's Day, I believe.
Yeah, we got the point across.
We got enough in there.
I think people just need to watch it to understand, because it does have some really fun, awesome kills in it, and kills in quotes here. But yeah, I think you really need to check it out.
Yeah,
it's one of the more original ones, I think, and very well done. Well acted. I really have no complaints, and like I said, I love the score. So I think this is a good example of an 80s slasher.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think that's my first take on it when I reviewed it 6 years ago, and it's still my take now. That it, like you said, it's a great example of an 80s slasher, and it's a lot of fun. So definitely check this out. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you all here, or I guess we wouldn't be seeing you at all, but we hope that you're here next week listening to us on the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur podcast. So have a great night, everyone.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using code CHAMPION and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-888-532-3500.